Hello, Ghost of Lilacs here with the Stardew Valley Challenge. This series was recorded after the 1.6 update I'm playing on the Nintendo Switch with 0 mods. There are many pizza-related Stardew challenges. This is my own with my own set of rules. All you need to know right off the bat is that my goal is to have 1 million gold, cash on hand, not total earned. I have severely limited the types of crops and animal products I'm allowed to cultivate. They are pizza related. I must choose the Joja route. All of the rules are outlined in the description below if you'd like to take a closer look at them. Let's get started. This is Ghost, who lives on Pizza Farm. Her favorite thing is pineapples. So on day 1, I'd woken up in Grandpa's house, and the Mayor Lewis had been kind enough to leave me some parsnip seeds to plant. I will not be planting these seeds, but before I can sell them, I cleaned up the farm a bit. I chopped down some trees and crafted my first chest. I made my way into town, stopping to say good morning to everyone I came across before I sold my parsnip seeds. With this meager bit of money, I bought some cauliflower seeds. These seeds are very pricey, but they are included with seeds I've permitted myself to grow, being as cauliflower crust pizza is a very real thing. I returned home and planted and watered my cauliflower. You may have noticed that I started planting in a very specific pattern. This will make it much easier when it's time for me to craft sprinklers. While I cleared the farm, I came across some mixed seeds. I planted them and I'm allowed to sell, gift, or eat the produce they yield. But I'm not allowed to make more in a seed maker or buy the seeds directly. I foraged as I went, as I'm allowing myself to sell, gift, or eat whatever I find in the wild as well. It was getting into the evening when I just missed greeting Elliot before he retired to his sea shack. There was still time to meet Sebastian, so I went into the mountains and said hello to a few more villagers before returning to my farm for some late-night weeding. I came across some carrot seeds that will be very useful when I need to venture into the mines, so I plopped those into the ground, gave them a good watering, and went to bed for the night. On day 2, I watered my plants and met Willie on the pier for a free fishing rod. I lucked out. There was a spawning spot directly next to the fisherman, and I was able to hook a few fishies. I sold them to Willie and made a little bit of pocket money. On my way to buy more cauliflower seeds, I ran into Jas and Elliot, so that was everyone met. I gave the good mare a daffodil and bought my seeds. I was back to being broke, but at least I had a way of making some money while I waited for the cauliflower to grow. I fished a little more that evening, and right before heading home, I fished up a chest with rice shoots. Those would be going in the ground with the wild seeds I had found, as every little bit helps financially. I had reached fishing level 1 and foraging level 1. It was a good day. I woke up on day 3 to a dreary mess. I knew that I wanted to fish, but I didn't fancy messing about with the river. Catfish spawn on rainy days, and my fishing skill wasn't high enough for me to feel confident in my ability to catch them. Instead, I knocked down a few trees, crafted a chest, and went to the mountain lake, where I took advantage of 3 separate fish spawning spots. I breezed past level 2 fishing onto level 3. On day 4, I was a bit tired of fishing, so I focused on my farm. I cleared some of the rocks and weeds, then traveled south to the forest where I did a little fishing when a spawning spot appeared. I didn't have much to show for my effort, but I knocked down some trees and broke down the branches, rocks, and weeds that were congesting the woods. Leah seemed to be following me around the woods as I cleared the debris, so I stopped to say hello to her. I made very little money that day, but I did reach mining level 1. On day 5, Marnie was outside of my farm and wondered if I would adopt the stray cat she found. Of course I said yes, and the little black cat came to live on my farm. I named her Blinky. I received a letter informing me that the caves were open, but before treading to the mountains, I watered my crops and harvested my first carrots. These will be useful for replenishing energy and health in the mines, so the timing couldn't be better. I grabbed my fishing chest from the lake and headed into the cave. Marlin, the head of the Adventurer Guild, introduced himself and generously provided me with a rusty sword. He said something about me having to prove myself before entering the guild building, but I wasn't concerned. I had picked up a community quest from Clint requesting copper ore, so I was ready to get spelunking for the good stuff. It was a neutral luck day, and I didn't have much difficulty finding the ladders. On floor 7, I scored a glow ring and sneakers. On level 10, a chest contained a femur, a club-type weapon I'd never encountered before. As it was capable of twice as much damage as the rusty sword, I was happy to take it. I left with twice as much copper as required to fulfill Clint's quest. I headed to the saloon to find him and turned it in. The rest of the evening, I foraged for more spring onions and cleaned up some stone on my farm. I also planted some mixed seeds I found from the cave. I woke up on day 6 with Clint on my doorstep. He had heard that I had obtained some copper ore and generously provided me with blueprints to craft a furnace. I will need to smelt plenty of bars to upgrade my tools in the future, so this will be invaluable. Marlin had sent me a letter following up on his proving yourself hint. He wanted me to kill 10 green slimes. That was perfect, because today was a good luck day and I was already planning on heading to the mines. After filling Blinky's water bowl and giving her a pet, I was off to the forest. There were plenty of spring onions, so I stocked up for the mines. I stopped by Pierre's, and 2,000 gold later, I had an expanded rucksack. Hooray! I didn't have the easiest time traversing the mines today. It took some work to find the ladders. I discovered level 18 was infested with green slimes, and while that was helpful towards proving myself, I didn't want to pass out. My mining skill was not high enough to unlock the staircase recipe, or I would have crafted one to bypass the slimy mess. I returned to the surface to discover I had to kill just one more slime to enter the Adventurers Guild, so I did just that. I sold my rusty sword to Marlin and headed home. I sold some forage I had picked up and planted the mixed seeds I had found in the mines. I reached foraging level 2, mining level 2, now I can create staircases, and combat level 1. On day 7, I watered my crops and went to the ocean for some fishing. The weather forecast predicted that tomorrow would be a rainy day, perfect for upgrading my watering can. Although I had recently spent nearly all of my money on my rucksack upgrade, I was confident that I could make most of that back today, and the remainder the following day. Partway through the day, I sold my fish to Willie and went to Clint's so the blacksmith could break open some geodes for me. I already had a dwarf scroll and some minerals to donate to the museum, so I brought those with me as well. When I entered the library, Gunther accepted my donations and rewarded me with some cauliflower seeds. I was on my way home to plant them and stopped when I realized it was the Mayor Lewis's birthday. That morning, I had picked up a fetch quest where he requested a Joja Cola. I gave him a daffodil I had found that morning and returned to my farm. Once my seeds were planted and watered, I went to the mayor's house to drop off the Joja Cola. I fished in town for the rest of the evening and decided that I was going to hold on to an anchovy I caught earlier that day to create a fish pond once I had the money. I reached level 4 fishing. I awoke to the gentle sound of raindrops on my farmhouse roof on day 8. I harvested 2 parsnips, grabbed 5 copper bars, and headed into town to do some fishing before Clint's shop opened. I had made enough money to have my watering can upgraded, and as tomorrow's forecast also called for rain, I jumped at the chance to have it upgraded. Once I dropped off the watering can, I traveled to the docks to continue working on my fishing skill. I had picked up a fetch quest for George, who requested some seaweed, so I fished in the ocean for the rest of the afternoon. I caught a few treasure chests, one with some rice shoots, but overall it was a fairly ordinary day. Later that afternoon, I dropped off the seaweed for George, who gave me a prize ticket. I redeemed it at the Mayor Lewis's house and received 12 carrot seeds. I returned home to plant these with my rice shoots. I was running low on energy, so I went to bed a little earlier than usual. I reached farming level 1. On day 9, I received a letter from my dad, who sent me $500. Thanks, Dad! I crafted my first scarecrow and another chest. I also crafted some spring seeds from the forage I had collected. I left the farm and considered fishing, but after an unsuccessful ordeal involving a very angry catfish, I sulked into the cindersap forest for some spring onions. I headed into the mountains, collecting more forage as I went. After a little fishing, I decided to go mining. At level 20, I found an elf blade, which, unfortunately, was worse than the femur I've been swinging at slimes, so I sold it to Marlin. Around level 24, I got into another angry ordeal, this time with flying insects. I dove into the mines a little longer, made it to floor 25 before turning in for the night. Day 10 proved to be a very busy day. I crafted more copper bars and sold some of my forage and crops. When I went into town, the Mayor Lewis showed me the decrepit community center. I picked up my watering can and dropped off my pickaxe at Clint's. It was Vincent's birthday, so I gave him a daffodil. It was back to the farm as Penny had put in a fetch request for a leek, and I had to water my crops with my new and improved watering can. I constructed an additional scarecrow and took the scenic route back into town by way of the mountains. When I passed by the community center, I stopped in to get the community center quest going. I will not be completing it this time. It's Joja all the way. By this time, school was finished, and I gave Penny the leek she requested. On my way to the forest, Alex caught me rummaging through the trash bin. He must not have been too bothered, as he still had time to be a dork face, saying that if I wasn't a girl, he'd ask me to play catch. I played along, suggesting that I wanted to play catch with him, but my sarcasm was lost on him. I finally arrived at my favorite spot to find some... Wait, no. Oh dear. My good luck must have run out as there were no spring onions available to forage today. I decided to fish in the forest stream and caught my 100th fish. I will sell my haul tomorrow as they will be worth more by way of the fisher profession. An hour later, I drifted off to Slumberland, dreaming of the spring onions I hoped to find on day 11. I reached fishing level 5 and chose the fisher profession, making fish worth 25% more. I woke up on day 11 with a letter from the wizard inviting me to his tower in the woods, and Robin had requested that I locate her lost axe. I made fast work of harvesting and watering my crops, and I sold my fish from the day before. My dreams became a reality. A quick trip to the cindersap forest showed my beloved spring onions had returned. I picked up Robin's axe and stopped by the wizard's tower for some funny-smelling forest juice that made me see stuff. The effects of the potion must have still been in my system, as I swear Jas and Vincent convinced me to investigate the sewer because they saw something moving around in there. I'll sleep it off, and I'm sure there won't be anything down there after all. Right? Up to the mountain to return Robin's axe, and I was surprised with a fish spawning spot. I fished for a few hours and dropped off some of my mining treasures at the museum. I didn't have any plans for the evening, so I cleaned up my farm a little. While I was fishing, I found some rice shoots, so I cleared a space for them. I went to bed a little earlier tonight, pleased that I had made a nice amount of money. Day 12 was a very important day. It was the day before the egg festival. My precious cauliflower would be ready to harvest, but I didn't have any seeds to replace them. I had picked up a fetch quest for Marnie the day before, but her shop had been closed when I tried to make the delivery, so while I waited for 9 o'clock to roll around, I searched for spring onions. There were only 2, but I was happy to have them. I dropped off the fish Marnie requested, stopped at the blacksmith for my pickaxe, and while I was there had Clint crush some geodes I had found in the mines. There were quite a few new treasures, so I dropped them off at the museum. Gunther awarded my efforts with some melon seeds I will plant next season. My final stop in town was at Pierre's, where I bought 50 cauliflower seeds. It seemed excessive, but as they are the only crop I am focusing on cultivating for this challenge in spring, I had to go for it. Bye-bye hard-earned cash. Hello, future fortunes. Once home, I did a lot of cleanup around my crops. The bulk of my day was spent chopping trees and planting my seeds. I finished up my task earlier than expected and hiked up to the mountain lake, where I fished for the remainder of the evening. I fished up more rice shoots, but I will have to plant those another day as I was very late returning home. Cutting down those trees paid off. I reached level 3 foraging. My heart was filled with excitement on the dawn of day 13. It was cauliflower day. With each cauliflower I harvested, I planted a mixed spring seed in its place. It took quite a while to water my crops, but the payoff would be well worth it. I shipped all the cauliflower except for 2. one for a possible fetch quest and one for a definite fetch quest from Jody that I'd be receiving in the future. It was time for the Egg Festival. I didn't have a need for strawberry seeds and not enough extra money to spend on decorative items, so instead I took my time chatting with the residents. I posed behind the bunny standee and thought about how cute I looked. I also considered that I had forgotten to forage for spring onions, but that couldn't be helped now. I participated in the egg hunt and won a straw hat. I still had some energy left, so I cut down some trees before turning in for the night. I reached farming level 2 and made some nice coin for my cauliflower. I awoke on day 14 to more cauliflower ready to harvest. Some of my rice shoots were also ready. I didn't have any set plans for the day, aside from more planting, so it was off to Pierre's to pick up 25 more cauliflower seeds. I crafted some basic fertilizer for them, and into the ground they went. I was headed into Cindersap Forest to check for spring onions when a fishing spawn spot appeared. I fished for a few hours and made my way back into town with a daffodil for Haley. She seemed to like the birthday present. I spent the early evening walking around town chatting with my neighbors. I finally made my way back to the forest when Abigail decided to get snotty about losing the egg hunt. There were only 3 spring onions today, but I was able to sell the gold and silver ones. I was in bed early tonight, satisfied that Abigail is bitter. I reached farming level 3. On day 15, I woke up feeling lucky, and the TV confirmed it. It was also salmonberry season, and if there's one thing I love more than spring onions, it's salmonberries. I had my heart set on venturing into the mines today, so I watered my crops, harvested my 2 cauliflower, and was off to the forest. Good luck means lots of spring onions, so I scooped them up and grabbed any berries along the way. I ran into Leah as I cut through town, and she judged me for wanting to be a successful pizza maker. Next time I'll be sure to lie so you like me. It seemed to work with Alex. I reached the mines and chowed down on a bunch of gold-quality spring onions. Tending all of my crops is doing a number on my stamina, but it will be worth it in the long run. Until then, gotta keep on snacking. I was flying through the mines. Ladders were showing up everywhere, but not as much copper ore as I originally anticipated. I was okay with that. I found one of my favorite weapons, the wood club. It's considerably stronger than the femur I was bashing bugs with, so I was excited. As afternoon changed over to evening, I lucked out with a motherload of copper. It was starting to get late, and at floor 39, I crafted my first of possibly many staircases and made it to level 40, where I was granted the slingshot. I left the mines with 72 pieces of copper and went to bed very late. I reached level 2 combat and level 3 mining. When I left the farmhouse on day 16, the forage was ready from the mixed spring seeds I had planted. Dad sent me $500 that Grandpa had left for me, and I was off to town for more cauliflower seeds. Today was the last day I could plant them, so it was imperative that I grab them while I could. I arrived at Pierre's, and Morris of Joja Corporation was handing out coupons for 50% off. This made Pierre sad, which made me happy. Abigail is still a hater, and Pierre is miserable. I bought my seeds with the realization that soon I'll be able to purchase my Joja membership. On the way back to my farm, Haley delivered a sick burn regarding my appearance. It seemed she forgot that daffodil I gifted for her birthday. After planting my seeds and some fertilizer for them, it was back into the mines. It was more challenging to find the ladders today, but I did find a nice group of iron ore. I left the mines early and sold the femur bone I had been brandishing, then off to Cindersap Forest for some night foraging. I stocked up on a few spring onions, salmon berries, and miscellaneous goodies before heading to bed for the night. Day 17 had arrived, and with it some harvestables by way of my spring mixed seeds and rice shoots. I was off to Cindersap Forest, and before you could say, "Top of the morning to you laddies," I had found the proverbial pot of gold. I also found a fish spawning spot, so I fished for a while before donning a new hat. The luck of the Irish must have been with me as I fished up more rice shoots. Once the fish stopped biting, I was off for spring onions, and Leah confessed that she stepped on a bug. That afternoon, I turned in a fetch quest for George and received a prize token for my trouble. I hit the jackpot with a peach tree sapling. I will be harvesting and selling the fruit since it was free. I went to the library and dropped off some elvish jewelry I found Abigail there. She apologized in advance in case she said anything rude, and I decided to be the bigger person and give her a loved gift, an amethyst I found when fishing. No hard feelings here. I ran into Alex cradling his security blanket, football. Go long indeed. I sold some forage and cleared some space for my new peach tree. The remainder of the evening was spent cleaning up the farm. While I drifted off to slumberland, I heard a strange plane over my head and lots of little boxes hitting the roof. I wondered what that was all about. I reached level 6 fishing. Day 18 was another good luck day. After watering my crops, I was off to the forest to search for spring onions. It was Pam's birthday, so I surprised her with one of her loved gifts, a parsnip. It was time for a snack of spring onions and mine exploration. I found some tundra boots to replace my sneakers and a wooden hammer to replace my wooden club. I made some good progress in the mines and sold my sneakers and club to Marlin. I reached level 4 mining. I awoke on day 19 to some cauliflower and rice ready to harvest. I crafted a recycling machine for all the trash I had been fishing up. After gathering 2 spring onions, a fish spawning spot appeared in the forest. What luck! I had hoped to get some fishing done today. Once the spot dried up, I went into town to find another spot. I fished some more before making my way to Willie's to sell my haul. I was going to buy a nicer fishing rod until I saw that the iridium rod was available and just out of my price range. I was off to Clint's to have the blacksmith process some geodes and drop the findings off at the museum, where Gunther gave me a starfruit seed and a decorative geode for my farm. I returned to the beach to fish up a herring to fulfill a fetch quest for Penny. At the farm, I crafted 2 more smelting furnaces and realized I forgot to check my mail, where Willie had told me about the iridium rod being available. Whoops! Jody requested a cauliflower, and I'd been saving one for her so I could get that done the following day. I cleaned up the farm a bit before heading to bed. I reached level 4 farming and level 4 foraging. Lots of chores were on the agenda for the morning of day 20. After tending to my crops, I delivered Jody's cauliflower, Alex's leek, and as it was Shane's birthday, I brought him a parsnip. I think he liked it. It was already early afternoon, so I skipped spring onion foraging in favor of booking it to the mines. It was a good luck day, so my priority was attempting to get to the lower levels ASAP. Starting at level 80, I can mine gold. Gold is used in the quality sprinklers I'm hoping to unlock in early summer. I mined up a fair amount of iron and was just shy of reaching level 70 when I had to return home. Before heading into my farmhouse, I noticed that a soggy newspaper I had placed in the recycling machine earlier had turned into cloth. I put another in before going to bed very late. Emily was waiting outside of my farmhouse on day 21. She somehow knew that I had obtained some cloth and invited me to use her sewing machine. That was nice. My crops watered, I went to see Willie for my new fishing rod. I tried it out and then was off to the blacksmith so Clint could crush some more geodes for me. I dropped off the new minerals to Gunther and was back to fishing. You see, Willie had posted 2 fetch quests back to back. One required 4 sunfish, the other 4 sardines. The sunfish quest expired today, so I finished that up and turned it in before tackling, see what I did there, the sardines. Once those were fished up, I turned that into Willie. Willie had given me a prize ticket for the sunfish quest, so I exchanged it for some mixed seeds. I'll plant those in the summer. There were no spring onions today. Boo! But a fish spawning spot appeared in the forest. I fished until my inventory was full and cleaned up the farm a bit before bed. It was Demetrius who was waiting for me on my porch on the morning of day 23. It seemed he wanted to conduct some experiment or something on the cave on my farm. I could either grow mushrooms or invite bats to bring me fruit. As mushrooms are found on pizza, I chose mushrooms. Mayor Lewis wrote to inform me I was deemed Best Neighbor of the Month. For all of the fetch quests I had completed, I was awarded 500 gold. After a quick jaunt to the cindersap forest for my beloved spring onions, I was off to Clint's, where I asked the blacksmith for an upgrade. The realization was hitting that I most likely would not have all of the sprinklers I wanted by summer, so rather than fuss about, I bit the bullet and just upgraded my watering can. I fished at the pier until my inventory was full, sold my haul to Willie, bought some more bait, and fished some more. I returned to the farm that evening to sell more fish and forage. Then I was off to the mountains. I sold the extra wooden mallet and felt pleased with the amount of fish I sold that day. I reached fishing level 7. I had a plan for day 23, mining and lots of it. Before I left the farm, I had 2 pieces of mail. One informed me that my farm would be featured in the paper, and the other that the flower dance would be taking place tomorrow. I was off to the mines. I obtained the master slingshot, which is nice, I suppose, but I won't ever really use it. At level 80, I obtained the Templar's blade, which isn't bad. I love my wooden mallet, but right now this sword will be what I will need to get through the rest of the mines. I made it back home with little time to spare before I realized that with tomorrow's festival, I would be unable to pick up my watering can from Clint. I reached mining level 5 and chose the miner profession, which gives me +1 ore per vein. I reached level 3 combat. Day 24 was the flower dance. It was also the first day I had mushrooms available in my farm cave. I put 5 common mushrooms into the dehydrator and shipped off the poisonous one. I know that poison mushrooms don't belong on pizza, but I'm not going to just throw it away. I had many cauliflower ready to harvest, and these may be the last ones. Without my trusty watering can, it's possible I will not get to see the last batch through to harvest. In a last-ditch effort, I stopped by the blacksmith's to see if Clint was open before the festival. He was not. I perused Pierre's wares at the festival and chatted with everyone. Nobody likes me well enough to dance with me, so I simply observed and considered how much more everyone would like me once I was a successful pizza maker. I reached level 5 farming and chose the tiller profession, making crops worth 10% more. I woke up on day 25 feeling extra lucky. I found a nice patch of spring onions waiting for me in the cindersap forest. Sadly, these are a spring-only forage item, and summer is right around the corner, so I'm going to cherish them while they're here. I picked up my new and improved steel watering can from Clint and returned to the farm to water my crops. I set up my furnaces in the cave's entrance, so every 5 floors I could smelt some gold bars. I made it 10 floors, and on floor 90 I found the Wicked Chris. I'm not a huge fan of the daggers, but it's stronger than the Templar blade, so I'll give it a whirl. I packed up my furnaces and had them set up to smelt while I slept. I had one thing on my mind on day 26, cleaning up the farm. But before I could get started, I had some business in town. It was Pierre's birthday. He put on a brave face, insisting that he was going to fight Joja with all of his might. Joja. Oh, that's right! I needed to sign up for my membership. Thanks for reminding me, buddy. Oh, and here, have a daffodil. I went straight to Joja and signed up. Starting tomorrow, I'll be able to put some of my hard-earned money toward community improvements. I returned to the farm and grabbed some materials to give to Robin to construct a silo for me. I will be raising cows and pigs in the future, and I'll need a silo before I can even consider a barn. Plus, I want to clean up my farm, and having some of that pesky grass out of the way would be a big help. The rest of the day was spent setting up a dedicated area for smelting and staging areas for new crops. I have a good feeling that I'll be able to harvest my cauliflower after all, and that means level 6 farming, which means quality sprinklers. I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings. I went to bed early, satisfied that I made Pierre's birthday a memorable one. On day 27, I woke up to a pleasant surprise. Many of my cauliflower were ready to harvest. It appears that the season will end before all of them are available. and I might not make level 6 farming before the start of the summer, but it will be very close. It was the next to last day for my spring onion foraging, so I grabbed them and went straight to Joja to ponder what community benefit I wanted to unlock first. I might want to unlock the greenhouse, as there are no crops for me to grow in winter and only wheat in the fall. I'll have to think about this some more. What would you unlock first? I popped down to Clint's and had the blacksmith crush some geodes for me. I handed off the new ones to Gunther and went to visit Emily. It was her birthday, and I gave her a topaz. I didn't have any plans for the day, so I went to the mines. It wasn't a good luck day, but that didn't stop me from snagging a fair amount of gold ore. I made it about 7 floors and headed home. I reached level 4 combat. I reached level 6 mining. It was the last day of spring, day 28. I have been crafting mixed spring seeds as placeholders for the upcoming season. This ensures that weeds, branches, and rocks will not spawn in those areas on the first day of summer. Sure, I could have sold that forage for a little money, but time is money, and I'd rather save myself time on the first day of the season, so I try to craft as many of these seeds as I can. Got to work scything the grass to turn it into hay for my new silo. It makes me so happy to have all of this cleared away. Walking through the grass slows you down, and I can feel the difference. It was the last day for spring onions until next spring. I gathered the few that were left and headed into the mines. I reached level 100, and with it, a star drop, which will increase my total energy. This is going to be a big help in summer, where I plan to have even more crops. I made it to level 105 and headed home for the evening. With summer just around the corner, it was time to say goodnight. I woke up to a humid, sticky first day of summer. The changing of the season meant preparation for the new seeds I'd be planting. I was very fortunate there was minimal cleanup required to get the soil ready. I stopped by Pierre's to buy 100 hot pepper, tomato, and wheat seeds. I do not have room for all of these seeds currently. I'm saving some for the inevitable greenhouse I will be saving for. Unlike cauliflower seeds, which need to be bought over and over in spring, tomatoes and hot peppers continue to grow on the same plants throughout the season, meaning I only need to buy the seeds once. So why not buy a few extra? When I expand my crop area, I'll have room for the wheat. I wasn't finished watering until the mid-afternoon, when I ventured into the mountains to look for some forage. I stopped when I passed the old community center. It was now a beautiful Joja warehouse. I foraged in the cindersap forest and cleaned up my farm before heading to bed. I was awakened by a crash, bang, boom on the second day of summer. It was the first thunderstorm I experienced since moving to the valley. It was a good luck day, and as I didn't have to water my crops, I was off to the mines. There was an awful lot of beasties to be found in the caverns today. Swarms of bats attacked me on multiple levels, but my luck changed for the better on floor 110 when I found the Slammer, a powerful club-type weapon that put the dagger I was using to shame. It was not easy, but I plowed my way down to level 120, reaching the bottom of the mines. I obtained the skull key, which I won't be able to use for some time, but I'm happy to have made it to the bottom with only a copper pickaxe by the 2nd of summer. I went to bed very late, and there was an earthquake during the night. Because I had stayed up so late the night before, I woke up with less energy on day 3. The Mayor Lewis sent me a letter asking me to find his lucky purple shorts. I'm not going to make that quest a priority, but let's just say that once I get to know Marnie a little better, I'll be sure to retrieve them. I watered as many plants as possible before running out of energy. Fortunately, a solution had presented itself during the night. That is, the earthquake opened up the mountains and the bathhouse was now available. It's free to use the bathhouse, but it does take up a fair amount of time to get your energy replenished. I will be making good use of it until the day comes where I no longer need to water my crops. The rest of the afternoon was spent fishing in town. I returned to the farm and chopped down a few trees before heading to bed. That wood shopping paid off as I reached level 5 foraging and chose the forester profession, ensuring trees drop 25% more wood. On day 4, I woke up to a letter from Marnie. She had sent me some hay, and I thought that was very nice of her. My silo is currently full, so I'll store it in a chest for now. After watering my crops, I headed south to give Jas a sweet pea for her birthday. Then I was off to Clint's to have the blacksmith upgrade my axe to a copper one. On the way, however, I ran into Mayor Lewis, who was boo-hooing about the community center. He really only cares about himself and the townsfolk's perception of him. He is a garbage human being. I had acquired many gems, minerals, and geodes on my recent adventures in the mines, so I had Clint crush the geodes and donated the shinies to Gunther. I fished for a while, but grew restless and went foraging in the mountains. While I was there, I sold my old weapons to Marlin. I took a dip at the bathhouse and cleared the stone away from that area. Day 5 was a neutral luck day. I was able to harvest a little bit of wheat, and with it came some hay. I planted hot pepper seeds in their place and continued my watering ritual. In just a few more days, I'll have sprinklers as far as the eye can see. I took a dip at the bathhouse and found a fish spawning spot on my way into the mines, and then whacked at beasties and gathered iron ore. I was in bed rather early and had reached level 7 mining, and I reached level 5 combat, where I chose the fighter profession. All attacks deal 10% more damage. It was day 6, and time for the happiest moment of the summer thus far. My hot peppers were ready. I had some new ideas to sleep on, which is a clear indication that I was leveling up farming when I went to bed for the night, thus unlocking the quality sprinkler recipe. What does all of this mean? Only 2 more days of all of this watering. I went into town to pick up my copper axe, and Clint broke some geodes for me. I took the new minerals to the museum and picked up some pumpkin seeds Gunther had as a reward. I wanted to test out my new axe, but was severely lacking in energy, so I cleared the weeds up by the bathhouse and then settled in for a nice soak. Fresh and clean, I headed back to the farm to break up some of those pesky hardwood stumps. I used the hardwood to create a worm bin for an endless supply of fishing bait. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, probably because I had indeed reached farming level 6 and had unlocked the wonderful quality sprinklers. I had just one thing on my mind when I awoke on day 7, and that was crafting 24 sprinklers for my 192 crops. It was the last day of the summer that I would need to manually water all of them, and boy were my arms tired. I harvested a few summer squash that came from seeds I had hoed up and some radishes from mixed seeds. I foraged around the mountain and took a bath. It was supposedly a good luck day, and so I went into the mines for more iron ore. I found barely any iron, so I went to the lower levels. I squashed many a bug, so many that I completed Marlin's monster eradication goal. I was awarded the insect head weapon, which I immediately sold. I returned to my farm and crafted another furnace before turning in for the night. What a beautiful morning day 8 was. The birds were singing, the sun was shining, and I didn't have to water any crops. I checked the mail, and Robin had generously sent me 50 pieces of wood. I'll be sure to put them to good use. With nearly all of my energy and feeling lucky, I headed into town where I accepted a slime hunter quest from the mayor. I had the slime slaughtered by 11, so I mined for a bit of iron. I turned in my quest and accidentally hit Granny Evelyn with my weapon. Fortunately, she didn't feel a thing, but I still felt bad. I returned to my farm and started clearing the area where I'm going to put my future barn. I went to bed early thinking of all the possibilities I had now that I no longer had to water all of those crops. Day 9 started out great. I awoke to a whole lot of hot peppers ready to harvest. There were also some sunflowers, a poppy, and some summer spangles. The sunflowers dropped some seeds, so I replanted them, and also some mixed seeds I had found. I checked the calendar and realized I had missed Gus's birthday. I don't know how friendly I plan on being towards Gus, as the owner of the Stardrop Saloon does sell pizza. Regardless, I was going to buy a calendar the following day. There was another slime slaying request, this time for twice as many slimes for twice the reward. I wasn't feeling lucky, and I didn't want to go into the mines. But blinded by my own greed, ambition, I decided to venture back in. But first, I utilized a fish spawning spot outside of Clint's while I waited for the blacksmith to open. He smashed some geodes and I turned in the one new mineral to the museum. I stopped by Granny Evelyn's to give her a sweet pea flower. I still feel really bad about hitting her with my club yesterday. It was time for the mines, and boy, I had a rough go of it. As much as I love the Slammer Club, it's so painfully slow. I found a Holy Blade, and while it's significantly weaker than the club, at least it's not so cussed slow. With a +4 speed and +2 defense, and the Crusader enchantment, I think this is going to be my go-to for now. It was too late to track down Lewis, so I'd turn in the request tomorrow. I was cleaning up my farm when, bam! I was hit on the head by a book? Woody's Secret. Reading this book grants an ability. Felled trees have a 5% chance to yield double the wood. That was a very nice find. As I lay in bed that evening, I considered the highs and lows of the day. Overall, it wasn't that bad. I wanted to focus a little more on my farm on day 10. When I checked the mail, I had a letter from Mayor Lewis informing me of the luau the next day. I was supposed to bring a high-quality ingredient for the soup. The governor was going to be in attendance, so I was to be on my best behavior. I donated a bone to the museum and achieved treasure trove for donating 40 different items. I turned in my slime slaying request and was given a prize token for my trouble. I received 3 mystery boxes that contained warp totems and fertilizer. I used the recently obtained mountain warp totem to shop at Robin's. I picked up a calendar, the recipe for the big chest, and a birch dresser. I fished at a spawning spot and returned to Robin's to wish Maru a happy birthday and gave her a piece of quartz she can use for one of her inventions. I returned to my farm and spent the rest of my day adding an entire section. While working, I found a few summer squash and hot peppers that were ready to harvest, so I sold them for some quick cash. I had enough materials to craft just enough sprinklers, but I really need to go mining for some iron ore soon. I reached level 8 fishing and level 7 farming. Day 11 was the day of the luau. I filled Blinky's water bowl and gave her a pet before I raced into town, only to realize I forgot my ingredient for the potluck. So I hurried home, grabbed the Gold Star cauliflower I had been saving, and fished while I waited for the festival to begin. I used all of my fishing bait, and as luck would have it, a fish spawning spot appeared right next to me. I fished until it disappeared and headed to the luau. I talked to the villagers and added my Gold Star cauliflower to the soup. The mayor announced it was time for the potluck ceremony. What's next? The covered dish ritual? Anyway, the governor loved it, and I felt a little closer to my neighbors after that. After the shindig, I took some wood to the beach to repair the bridge leading to the tide pools. Starting tomorrow, there would be some good forage there. While there, I dug up a book called Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Thick, and by reading it, I gained +1 defense. That night, I had a terrible nightmare that I had set off a bomb on my farm that destroyed some of my tomatoes. There must have been something funny in that soup I ate. I awoke on day 12 with my hot peppers and tomatoes ready for harvest. I received a letter from Shane teaching me how to make pepper poppers, which seemed appropriate for today's harvest. I made my way into town and accepted a request from Clint, who wanted some copper ore. I stopped at the beach to forage and sell my shells to Willie, who told me about a secret project he has in the back of the shop. I was off to the mines and quickly acquired the necessary ores. I found another book, the Monster Compendium, which monsters have a small chance to drop double loot. I turned in Clint's request before cleaning up the farm. I did not get to bed until very late, but I made mad bank. It was the morning of day 13 when the melon seeds I had obtained from Gunther had matured, so I harvested and sold them all, but two. One in case of a fetch quest, and one I definitely need for a fetch quest. I went into town looking for a quest when Clint wanted more ore. Gold ore this time, only 8 pieces. Easy enough, right? I went into the mountains where I hoed up a dinosaur egg. Normally I'd keep this and raise dinosaurs, but there are no dinosaur eggs on pizza, so this was going to be donated to the museum. I dropped off some things at home, then set off for the ore. I finished quickly, turned in the quest. I asked Clint to upgrade my pickaxe to iron and for him to smash open some geodes for me. There were a few minerals I hadn't donated in the past, and Gunther had a rare crow scarecrow for me. I stopped by the beach for a little foraging and gifted Alex a grape for his birthday. I spent the rest of the afternoon and evening cleaning up my farm, and all of that hard work paid off as I reached foraging level 6. Now I can create lightning rods, which will help protect my crops during storms. I woke up feeling great on day 14. I didn't have any crops ready to harvest, so I got to work crafting lightning rods. I would have liked to create more, but I ran out of iron. I also crafted some trap bobbers as I planned on spending my day fishing. I picked up a fetch quest from Clint, but I wasn't able to go to the mines as he was still working on my pickaxe. I was okay with that. I had enough mining over the past 2 days. When my pickaxe was ready tomorrow, I could venture back into the caverns. For now, it was time to fish. Partway through the day, I sold my haul to Willie and went right back out until I used up my bait. Once my bait was depleted, miraculously, a fishing spawning spot appeared. When I became exhausted, I headed home for the night, confident I made just enough money to allow me to purchase the greenhouse. When I woke up, I checked the weather forecast on day 15. It said that there was an anomalous reading for the following day. What could that mean? I didn't have time to worry about that. I had a field of hot peppers to harvest and ship. After that, I was off to Clint's to pick up my pickaxe. On the way into town, I checked the message board and there was another ore request for Clint. I grabbed my new and improved pickaxe and headed to Joja Mart to purchase my greenhouse. I'm going to need more sprinklers, but that's a problem for a future ghost. With my new pickaxe in tow, I made quick work of gathering the required ores for Clint, 40 copper and 6 gold. I had plenty of time to spare before turning the quests in, so I dug around for some iron. I went to the saloon to socialize before Clint showed up, then I turned in the quests. He gave me a prize token I redeemed for some Stardrop tea. I spoke to Mayor Lewis, who admired my melons, saying Grandpa enjoyed growing them on the farm too. I did a little fishing before returning home early. I wanted to be prepared for whatever strange weather event was happening the next day. While I slept, Morris oversaw the reconstruction of my greenhouse, and a big raccoon ran out. He headed in the direction of the cinder sap forest. I reached level 8 farming. I awoke on day 16 to a green rain descending on the valley. After giving Blinky a pet and checking the calendar, I turned the TV on to see the forecast and get the dope on my horoscope. Unfortunately, it was just green static. I didn't have time to worry if this green rain was toxic or dangerous. I had tomatoes to harvest. After taking care of farm chores, I went to inspect my new greenhouse. Ah, she's a beauty. So much money will be made within these 4 walls. Gus sent a letter saying everyone was welcome to hang out at the saloon for the sake of safety, so I headed into town. Clint had posted yet another fetch quest, this time for one of my prized iron bars. I accepted it as every bit of cash helps, but dang, Clint, why are you so needy? I cut down a swirly-looking tree that produced fiddlehead ferns. Those don't belong on pizza, but they're forage, so those are gonna go right into the shipping bin when I get home. I chopped down trees and cleared weeds here and there as I checked on the townsfolk throughout the day. I brought Clint the iron bar and headed home. My energy was nearly depleted, and I was sick of the rain. I had a visitor waiting for me on my porch on day 17, Granny Evelyn. She heard about my new greenhouse and brought me a gardening pot along with instructions on how to make more. What a sweetheart. My summer forage was ready to harvest, so I scooped it up and made more seeds to plant in their place. I went into town and picked up a fetch quest for my buddy Pierre, who requested a purple mushroom. I had one, but realized later that his shop is closed on Wednesday, so I'd have to deliver it tomorrow. I stopped by Joja Mart, who is open 7 days a week, and purchased the minecart community upgrade. The next time I'm headed to this side of town or to the mines, I'll be able to zip on over. While I was there, I purchased 50 hot pepper and tomato seeds for my new greenhouse. I mined a little for some iron to help make my sprinklers and wasted the rest of my afternoon into early evening trying to hunt down Sam so I could give him a birthday gift. By the time I found him, he was locked in his bedroom and I couldn't get to him. I went home and started preparing my greenhouse. I didn't have enough time to plant and water everything, but I set up the sprinklers to do the heavy lifting starting tomorrow. That night, Morris and the Joja boys fixed up the mine carts. I reached level 8 mining. Day 18 was a great day. It all started when my dad sent me some stone. I can't imagine how much the shipping costs were on that one. My hot peppers were ready for another harvest, and my first peach was ready. I stopped in my half-planted greenhouse to ensure all the sprinklers were working. I dropped off Pierre's purple mushroom and received another prize token. I redeemed it for a new bed. I set up my new bed and took the minecart straight up to the mine for more iron. It was a good luck day, and I brought home 88 pieces of ore. That will help make quite a few sprinklers. I reached level 9 farming and level 6 combat. I spent the better part of day 19 finishing up the sprinklers and planting my tomatoes and hot peppers in the greenhouse. I received a letter from my good friend Pierre, who sent me a recipe for a blueberry tart. That afternoon, I stopped into town to purchase the final rucksack upgrade, fished up a rainbow trout for Granny Evelyn, gifted Demetrius a grape for his birthday, dropped off Evelyn's fish, and delivered a tomato to Leah, thus completing another set of fetch quests. I spent the rest of the evening fishing. On my way home through the cindersap forest, I ran into Shane, and we shared a cold one, while he talked about how much his life sucked. On day 20, I awoke to a field of tomatoes ready to harvest. Demetrius sent me a fetch request for a melon, and I crafted some preserve jars. I'm only allowed to process tomatoes in these jars, and it will increase their selling price. I crafted 6 and made a nice little area for them. I wandered into the mountains to ask Robin to build a barn for me. I'll need to have the biggest barn possible, but I had to start somewhere. In the cindersap forest, the annual summer trout derby was taking place. I had no concrete plans for the day, so I fished for the remainder of it. I fished up another dinosaur egg and some geodes. I traded in my tickets for other prizes like a diamond and a crab pot that I set up right next to my recycling machine. This is a great way to farm for some refined quartz. All of that time at the trout derby helped me reach fishing level 9. I can tell you what I didn't want to do on day 21, and that's fishing. I got to work harvesting more hot peppers. I cleaned up some of the area in front of the barn so I can eventually build some fences. I went into town and picked up a fetch quest for Pam, who wanted a sunfish. I could get that wrapped up quickly, so I accepted it. I visited my best bud, Pierre, and bought the grass starter recipe. I'll need this to make a nice grassy area in front of the barn. Then I was off to Clint's, so the blacksmith could open some geodes and upgrade my axe. I dropped off goodies at Gunther's, then fished for Pam's quest. I was rewarded with a prize token, which I then exchanged for 4 quality sprinklers. The day was half over, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I did what I always do. I ventured into the caverns. I find mining very relaxing, even when there isn't much ore to show for my efforts. Have you ever had one of those days where you really didn't know what you wanted to do? That's how I felt on day 22. I felt lucky, so I mined for a bit, delivered a hot pepper to Jody, and fished until late into the evening. Nothing particularly extraordinary happened, but I was excited my steel axe would be ready for pickup the following day. Before shuffling off to bed, I refilled my preserve jars as my first batch of pickled tomatoes were ready. On day 23, I checked my greenhouse and my first peppers were ready to harvest. I put 5 in the dehydrator for some roasted hot peppers. It was a delivery day. I gave Demetrius the melon he requested, picked up my steel axe from Clint, picked up the Mayor Lewis's shorts. What are they doing in Marnie's bedroom? I'd rather not think about that too much. I took my new axe to the log blocking a path off of the cinder sap forest and found the secret woods. Here I battled slimes, chopped up some stumps for hardwood, and fished at a spawning spot where I caught up some new fish. I also fished up some plants I can decorate with. I left the woods and ran into Elliot and delivered a ruby he had requested. I dropped off the mayor's shorts. There's definitely more going on here that meets the eye, I'm sure of it. And I was back to my farm. I decided to make a small tree farm in the bottom corner. I'll most likely be reworking this area in the future, but it's a good start. It was nearing the end of the season on day 24. All of my crops were ready this morning, and while I harvested, I thought about why I hadn't purchased a cow yet. You see, if I buy a cow right now, I'll need 1,000 gold for a milking bucket. I'm currently at level 9 farming. At level 10, Marnie will start selling the auto grabber, which will milk the cow for me, thus eliminating the need for a bucket. The bucket would then be placed in a chest for the rest of my life. Every time I see it, I'll think about how I spent 1,000 gold on a bucket when I could have saved that money and put it toward my auto grabber. Once I reach level 10 farming, I'll buy the auto grabber and I won't have to ever look at that bucket. I had heard rumors of auto grabbers sometimes showing up in the Skull Caverns in the Calico Desert, but it would be a while before I had unlocked the boss, so I'd rather just buy it now. My crops harvested, I made my way to Clint so the blacksmith could upgrade my hoe. He crushed a few geodes and I donated the goodies to Gunther. It was Willie's birthday, so I gifted the fisherman one of his favorites, a gold bar. I fished the rest of the afternoon until evening, when I delivered an earth crystal Clint requested. He gave me a prize token I redeemed for an apple sapling. I planted it in my greenhouse, and it will never go out of season. I reached level 7 foraging and level 10 farming. I chose the artisan profession, making artisan goods worth 40% more. On day 25, I checked my mail, and sure enough, Marnie sent me a letter telling me all about the auto grabber. Say no more, I'm sold. I took care of farm chores and made my way down to Marnie's and picked up a heater and 2 cows. I named them Mozzarella and Deep Dish. I spent the afternoon building hardwood fencing and let my little friends out to graze. I delivered a hot pepper to George, and I fished in the ocean the rest of the evening. I was restless on day 26 and didn't have any real plans. I harvested the hot peppers in my greenhouse and gave my cows a pet. I stopped by Clint's to pick up my copper hoe and picked up a fetch quest for Leah. She had requested a diamond, and I was happy to fulfill the quest and receive 2,250 gold for my effort. On my way to the secret woods, I stopped and considered purchasing a rare seed for 1,000 gold. No, you do not find sweet gemberries on pizza. However, I would not be selling the fruit. I would be offering it to someone or something that could help me in the future. I considered it an investment and not the monetary kind, so I splurged. I cut up the hardwood stumps and fished for a bit. Then I was off to Marlin to sell some weapons I didn't need. I mined for a bit and went home. On day 27, I started off by watering my indoor crops. I had planted tomato, hot pepper, and my sweet gemberry into planters like the one Granny Evelyn had brought me. I'm going to sync up my peppers and tomatoes with the ones in the greenhouse so I won't have to check on them every day to see if there's anything to harvest. There were hot peppers in my field ready to harvest, the last ones of the season. I destroyed the plants, and I bought 300 wheat seeds to replace them. While at Pierre's, I picked up some speed grow for my indoor plants and the recipe for the dehydrator. It was very expensive, but I will be making that money back soon enough. I felt lucky and put that feeling to the test in the mines. I picked up a nice amount of gold and iron ore before heading to bed. My last thought before drifting off to slumberland was, did I sell my hot peppers? The answer was no. I wasted no time on day 28 watering my indoor plants and tracking down the case of the missing hot peppers. Oh, there they are, in my mushroom cave. Whoops. My preserve jars were ready, so I refilled those too. It was the last day for my tomatoes, so I harvested them, destroyed them, and planted wheat seeds in their place. I had some wheat to harvest, so I replanted those too. I'd made visiting the secret woods for hardwood part of my daily routine, and I found Abigail in the cindersap forest outside of the wizard's tower. She asked me where I'd like to go for an adventure, and while I was tempted to say Joja, as they are open 7 days a week, unlike her father Pierre's crummy general store, I opted for an old gnarled forest. She was all about it. I foraged around the mountains until it was time for the Dance of the Moonlight Jelly Festival on the beach. I bought a pretty banner to commemorate my first summer in the valley. The seasons had seemingly changed overnight when I awoke on day 1. The valley was bathed in a blanket of red and gold. Emily had a quest suggesting that I speak to everyone, and that would make them like me more. But I had other plans. I had purchased the dehydrator recipe from Pierre, and I wanted to craft a few of them. But I needed more fire quartz. I mined all day and only found one piece, but I wasn't going to let that discourage me. When I returned home, I crafted the second dehydrator and 2 cheese presses I would need once mozzarella and deep dish had matured a little. I also gathered up seeds in preparation for a planned expansion to my crop growing area. That would have to wait until tomorrow. I was all over the place on day 2. My beloved bovines had matured and produced their first milk. It was just little milk, but it doesn't matter because it was being made into cheese. I had all of the components to create pizza. I just needed the mill to ground the wheat. I would be able to obtain the cloth I need for the mill from the desert trader. That was something else that would need to wait. I started a new area for crops, much smaller as I don't intend to make any more sprinklers at this time. I had maxed out my farming skill over the summer, so now I had iridium sprinklers on my mind. I'd need to unlock the Calico Desert Bus community perk from Joja first. I'd like my pickaxe upgraded to gold and my combat and mining skill a little higher before that. When I went into town, Lewis and Robin were putting up the special orders board. I won't be focusing on these quests unless they're directly helping me toward one of my goals. Although hunting grubs in the mine isn't really going to make a huge difference raising my combat skill, I accepted it. I delivered a copper bar to Jody and gifted Penny a blackberry for her birthday. Haley observed that I smelled earthy, and although I was feeling unlucky, I ventured into the mines anyway. Gotta start bashing grubs. I found quite a few later in the evening. A bug I slaughtered dropped an ancient seed. As a pizza maker, I have no use for such things, so I'll donate it to the museum. I reached level 7 combat. On day 3, I was a pizza maker on a mission. After finishing up my farm chores, I was off to Clint's so the blacksmith could crush some geodes for me. I turned in the new bits to Gunther, who gave me an ancient seed and a recipe to make more. This will stay in my chest. I will not be planting it. I was thrilled to see some iridium ore turned up from one of the magma geodes. I already collected a few pieces from fishing chests and other geodes, so I was able to smelt them into my first iridium bar. It was time to finish up the grub quest from Clint. It was slow going until that afternoon when my luck changed. I completed the quest and found myself 6,000 gold richer. I hadn't visited the secret woods since summer, so I collected my hardwood and smashed slimes. I stopped by the statue of Master Cannoli and reflected on his words. Something sweet, eh? I'm sure that will reveal itself before the end of the season. Clint sent me a letter on the morning of day 4, including instructions how to craft a geode crusher. I harvested my wheat and headed to Robin's, where I asked the carpenter for an extra shipping bin and to upgrade my barn. I swung by the general store for more wheat seeds, 300 to be exact. Once the wheat was replanted, I was off to the mountain lake for some fishing. A fishing chest contained the book Jewels of the Sea, and now fishing treasure chests have a chance to yield roe. Upon reading it, I caught up quite a bit of carp roe. It was starting to get late and I was getting tired, so I headed home and crafted the geode crusher before heading to bed. I awoke on day 5 feeling all the love from little Blinky. After farm chores, I spent the morning fishing and then went into town. It was Elliot's birthday and I gave him a blackberry. I caught some salmon to finish up a fetch quest from Willie. I was looking for Willie in the saloon when Elliot walked in and we toasted our friendship. I left feeling a little tipsy. I turned in Willie's quest and had some prize tokens to also turn in. I received a book and 20 cherry bombs. The book was Friendship 101, and upon reading it, I have the ability to become friends with people a little faster. I stopped by the secret woods, and on the way, the traveling cart lady sold me a rare crow scarecrow. I did not sell my fish before turning in for the night, because I reached level 10 fishing. Fish are worth 50% more. If a fool and their money are soon parted, that made me a very foolish aspiring pizza maker on day 6. Before I could blow my hard-earned cash, I stopped to admire my larger barn. I went to Marnie's, and when I walked in, it was a sad scene. Shane's drinking was concerning, but apparently the best help I could offer was waking him up from a stupor with my watering can. Really? Anyway, it was time to buy goats. 2 goats, in fact. I named them Lil Caesar and Domino. I was up to Robin's to ask for another upgrade to my barn. The final upgrade. Once home, I crafted 2 more cheese presses. I see goat cheese in the future. I felt super lucky, so off to the mines I went. Tons of ore nodes, loads of gems, and one beastie dropped an iridium bar. Those are like gold at this stage of the game. Well, actually, those are like iridium because gold is like gold, but you know what I mean. All that mine time paid off as I reached mining level 9. I was awakened to the pattering of raindrops on my farmhouse roof on day 7. My greenhouse crops were ready to harvest, and I started a chest for items that I would put in my Grange display for the upcoming Stardew Valley fair. I made my way to the secret woods, where after battling slimes and chopping hardwood, I was on a mission for catfish. 3 of them, actually. Willie had a bulletin board request for them, and I was able to turn it in with little issue. The rest of the afternoon, I wandered around the deserted town. I found a little secret area next to Clint's where I discovered a golden trash bin that contained the Alleyway Buffet book. Reading this book grants me a greater chance to find items in the trash. I stopped by the bookseller and decided to save my money and chop down some of the trees before collecting a secret prize token. I exchanged it for a hat that I didn't really care for. I was in bed early that night, the pattering of the rain lulling me to sleep with its hypnotic lullaby. It was still raining when I awoke on day 8. Linus sent me a note asking me to help find his missing basket, as it was blackberry season. I will be gathering as many as possible for the foraging experience and free snacks on busy days. I was off to Robin's to request another silo. The grass situation was getting out of control, and I'd feel better having a second one. That sorted, it was down to see my best bud and buy 600 wheat seeds from Pierre. While in town, I picked up a special order request, Pierre's Prime Produce. Good friend wanted 25 Gold Star veg, and that was going to be a breeze. I stopped by Marnie's and decided against purchasing a pig right now. I just couldn't justify buying a baby pig, waiting 10 days for it to mature, only to sit in my barn eating my hay for a full season. Besides, I was saving the bulk of my money to unlock the bus to Calico Desert. I replanted my wheat and found Linus's basket. I returned the basket, and right under our noses was a diggy spot. I found Mining Monthly, and upon reading it, I gained some mining experience. It was time for my daily trek around the secret woods and down into Cindersap Forest. I foraged many blackberries, so many that I reached level 8 foraging. It was a breezy morning on day 9. I finished up my farm chores early and headed to Clint's so the blacksmith could open a mystery box for me. It contained some corn seeds. I also gave him my pickaxe to upgrade from steel to gold. I dropped off some goodies to Gunther, who gave me another rare crow scarecrow. I headed to the beach for some foraging, then off to the Cindersap Forest for more blackberry picking. I cleaned up a little of my farm and fixed up the area where I had my furnaces. On day 11, I had sunflowers, artichoke, and broccoli ready to harvest. One of the broccoli was gold quality, so I put it aside with an eggplant I had harvested from mixed seeds. These will be given to Pierre for his special order quest. I was back to the Cindersap Forest and Secret Woods to pick blackberries. I found the foraging skill one of the more difficult skills to level up, so this time gathering was well spent. I returned home and cleaned up a bit of my farm, adding hay to my second silo. I went fishing that night and caught the angler, one of the legendary fish. I held on to it as a memory of the fall. Someday I'll purchase a fish tank for it. Before turning in for the night, I reviewed my current stats. Hey, I'm doing pretty well for myself. There was a strong windstorm during the night. Day 11 offered a much-needed change of pace. My greenhouse crops were ready for harvest, and my baby goats, Domino and Lil Caesar, were all grown up and produced goat milk that I put into cheese presses. I was off to Robin's to have her move some of my farm buildings around and purchased a stable. A horse is included, and before you know it, I'll be galloping all over the countryside. I stopped up at the mines where, back in the spring, I had stashed a rhubarb pie that I had found in the saloon's garbage bin. I stopped by Clint's to pick up my gold pickaxe and brought the trash pie to Jody for a birthday present. She loved it. I scooped up the last of the blackberries and saw that a large tree had been damaged during the great windstorm. I would need 100 pieces of hardwood for repairs, but that was not something I could do while focusing on my pizza enterprise. Back at the farm, I rearranged my preserve jars and was up to the mines. I hadn't forgotten my desire for more fire quartz, and I found 3 pieces I crafted into dehydrators. Unfortunately, I had sold some of the peppers that I had meant to save for this purpose, but there will always be more peppers. I felt very lucky on day 12. My wheat was ready to harvest, and I had so many Gold Star veggies, I was able to complete my Buddy Pierre's Prime Produce Special Order quest. I was awarded 2,500 gold. I didn't waste any time getting to the mines. I was on a mission for one very simple artifact, a dwarf scroll. I had nearly enough money to purchase the Joja community upgrade to repair the bus to the Calico Desert. There were a few things I was interested in, like jade farming for staircases, buying salads, but there was just one very important thing I was definitely going to need: explosives. I could always craft my own, but I'd rather buy them from the dwarf who resides just to the right of the entrance to the mines. I couldn't communicate with him until after I donated the final dwarf scroll to the museum. In all the time I spent in the iron levels of the mines, I hadn't come across it yet. So, with that as my sole mission, I got to work, killing enemies, hoeing up the dirt, I even found a gold bar in the dirt, which I wasn't expecting, but it wasn't until nearly 11 p.m. that a beastie dropped the scroll. I'll be dropping that off tomorrow and making friends with a dwarf. I had a new friend on my farm on day 13, a trusty steed I named Diane. I am so excited for her to help me get around a little bit faster. After farm chores, I had Clint break open some mystery boxes for me. The contents were all over the shop, with bombs, food, and miscellaneous goodies. I donated the dwarf scroll to Gunther, who awarded me the Dwarfish translation guide. As expected, it teaches you Dwarfish. I stopped by Pierre's to give Abigail a birthday present when the shopkeeper showed his true colors. He was trying to sell the Gold Star veggies I had donated to him at an outrageous markup. Gus wasn't happy, and Jody was big mad. Pierre was being a greedy guts, and I told him as much. He didn't like that, and then realized I was right. But then he turned around to try to get me to buy my vegetables back while making 1 gold profit. How pathetic. I gave Abigail her birthday gift, an amethyst. It made me happy to see her happy. It was time to meet the dwarf. I bought the Dwarfish safety manual, and now bombs deal 25% less damage to me. I also bought a rare crow scarecrow. Down to Joja I went and paid for the bus repair. Once I get to the Skull Cavern, I get iridium. Once I get iridium, I can help Willie with his secret project, and once that happens, I will be swimming in pineapple? The rest of the afternoon into the evening was spent in the mines. I would really like to max my mining skill and raise my combat level before venturing into the caverns that await, but I didn't have much luck today. That night, the bus was repaired, and I can already smell that dry desert air. Do you remember on day 10 when there was a windstorm during the night? Well, real talk from Ghost of Lilacs here. There was a bad windstorm tonight while I was recording, and I lost the first half of day 14. I'll show you some footage I was able to salvage from that day. I received a small shipping bin from Pierre. I brought it with me when I left for the desert, along with a chest to hold warp totems to my farm and a place to store some food for adventuring and for gems I would be trading with the desert trader. I arrived at the desert and stopped in Sandy's Oasis, where I purchased 10 beet seeds for a side quest I was interested in. Beets don't belong on pizza, but I'm not going to be selling them or making any financial profit from them. You'll see what I mean when the time comes. I went to the desert trader and exchanged rubies for spicy eel and jade for staircases. Both would prove beneficial to my mining adventure. I set up my chest and used the key I had found at the bottom of the mines. I entered the Skull Caverns. I had a really good run throughout the evening. In the future, I will bring more bombs and buy a bunch of salads from the saloon. I didn't have a set goal for the day aside from getting as much iridium as I could and gaining some combat experience. I really need a better weapon. I found a crystallarium, which I will use to farm jade for more staircases. I set it up at the farm and started smelting the iridium I found before heading to bed. I had a visitor on my porch on the morning of day 15. It was Jody, inviting me to have dinner with her family. I needed to stop by her house some afternoon with a largemouth bass. I thought that was a very thoughtful gesture to invite me like that. I checked my mail and had a letter from a mysterious Mr. Key. He challenged me to reach level 25 in the Skull Caverns. That wouldn't prove difficult. I could do that. My pumpkins were ready to harvest, and I sold all of them but 2, one for a possible fetch quest and one for a definite quest I'd get from Caroline. I planted the beet seeds in their place. I sold the tomatoes in my greenhouse and was off to the mountains. I asked Robin to craft a mill for me so that I could process my wheat into flour. Tomorrow would be the Stardew Valley fair, so she'd start on it after that. I took the bus ride to the desert as it was Sandy's birthday, so I gave her a sweet pea flower. Good thing I unlocked the bus when I did. I spoke to the desert trader and exchanged 6 Omni Geodes for 2 desert warp totems. I can skip the bus fare and get there super early when I want. I putzed around in the Skull Caverns and collected 4 lousy pieces of iridium and some gems that I sold. Battling all those beasties paid off, though, as I reached combat level 8. The day of the Stardew Valley Fair had arrived on day 16. I had received a letter from Mr. Key congratulating me on making it to floor 25 in the Skull Caverns, and with it, 10,000 gold. My wheat was ready to harvest, but I ignored it and just scooped up the corn and broccoli. I was unsure if I had enough wheat seeds to replenish my field, and with the festival going on, I wouldn't be able to purchase more today. I checked in on my animals and emptied my grains display chest. I was off to the fair. Pierre was as unsufferable as always. I set up my grains display next to him, and while Mayor Lewis judged them, I talked to my neighbors. Well, would you look at that? I won! Aw, good friend Pierre wasn't too happy about that. Good. I was awarded 1,000 token thingies to trade in, but I needed double that to obtain a star drop. I played the slingshot game until I acquired enough. Then I played some more, and the fishing game to acquire another rare crow scarecrow for my collection. That night, I fell asleep with a smile on my face. On day 17, I was busy. I harvested and replanted my wheat field. The hot peppers were ready to harvest, and then I was off to Clint's to have my axe upgraded to gold. I dropped some goodies off at the museum and headed up to Joja to buy 400 wheat seeds. I saw Jody and Sam on my way out, and Sam commented that he smelled pizza. I'm not sure if he meant the food or my farm, and I was too afraid to ask. I mined the lower levels of the mine for a bit, working toward Marlin's slime eradication goal that wanted me to destroy 1,000 of the slimy fiends. If I can pull that off, I'll get the slime charmer ring, and the pesky buggers won't ever harm me again. That would be super helpful in the Skull Caverns. I realized that I hadn't looked at the special orders board, so I took a quick jaunt back into Pelican Town. Willie posted Juicy Bugs Wanted, so I scooped it up. I was going to be on a slime rampage anyway. I may as well take some of the bugs down with them. I found a prize token that I must have forgotten to pick up and was awarded a fish smoker. I'm not going to be using it, but it's nice to have, I guess. I returned to the mines to kill some bugs and left pretty late. There was a visitor on my farmhouse porch on day 18. It was Gunther, the museum's curator. He thanked me for all the donations and gave me a rusty key. I seem to remember something about a key in the sewers. I'll have to check that out. But first, I needed to check out my mill. I threw some wheat into it, and by tomorrow morning, I'll have flour. Flour sells more than wheat, so from here on out, all wheat will be milled before selling. My farm chores finished, I rode into town to check out the sewer grate, and would you look at that? The rusty key fits. I ventured below and met Krobus, a seller of rare and mysterious goods. He was selling a star drop, but I would come back for that another day. I needed to get the quarry unlocked, so I said goodbye to my new monster friend and was up to Joja to do just that. I'm hoping to find a prismatic shard up there that can be traded for the game's most powerful weapon. It was Marnie's birthday, so I gave her a sweet pea. I was back to the mines to work on Willie's quest. I left that evening with half of the bug meat I would need to complete it. That night, the bridge to the quarry was repaired. I reached level 10 mining and chose the prospector profession. The chance to find coal is doubled. Another visitor was on my porch the morning of day 19. Dang, I'm popular! It was Marnie, requesting a cave carrot to get her goats to say hello? That sounds a little strange to me, but I had a cave carrot set aside just in case someone would want to talk to one of their goats, so she was in luck. My mill was finished grinding my wheat into flour. I kept 100 and sold the rest. I harvested tomatoes from my greenhouse and picked up my gold axe from Clint. I bought a few big bombs from the dwarf and was off to the newly unlocked quarry. I was so excited. Surely there would be a special rock here that would have a prismatic shard, right? Right? Nope. There wasn't a prismatic shard waiting for me. I was so sure there would be, I hadn't even considered what I was going to do if there wasn't. In my frustration, I chopped down all the trees in the quarry with my newly improved axe. I felt rotten as I trudged to Marnie's. I dropped off her cave carrot and went into the secret woods to chop stumps. I went to the mines to work on the quest for Willie and unleashed my rage on the beasties. I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the bugs, but the slimes. And the crabs, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them. And then I went to the Adventurers Guild and picked up a cute hard hat I had earned by massacring Dougies. I checked the monster eradication goals and I still had a ways to go, but tomorrow would be a new day. Day 20 was rather uneventful. I harvested the hot peppers in my greenhouse and finished up Willie's Bug Guts quest. On my way to drop them off, I picked up a slime hunter request from Mayor Lewis. I dropped off the guts, grabbed my prize ticket, and exchanged it for 5 artifact troves. I returned to the mines, killed the slimes, and got to bed very late. On day 21, my sweet gemberry was ready to harvest. I harvested and replanted my wheat, then put the wheat in the mill to grind it into flour. I wandered into the tunnel by the bus stop and put a battery pack into the fuse box. A note told me to put a rainbow shell in the box next to the train station. So I did. I was next told to put 10 beets in the mayor's fridge. I stopped by Robin's and gifted her a blackberry for her birthday. I requested a house upgrade that would add a kitchen to my humble hovel. I dropped off a pumpkin Caroline had requested. I put the beets in the mayor's fridge, and a note told me to give the sand dragon his final meal. I stopped in the saloon and turned in the slime slaying request to the mayor and purchased 100 salads from Gus. I was off to the desert, where I put a solar essence in the mouth of the sand dragon. A final note told me to check the woodpile next to my house. Mr. Key certainly has a lot of free time on his hands if he has time to set up these ridiculous quests. It was time to go to the secret woods, where I offered Master Cannoli, the sweet gemberry. His eyes glowed like he had turned to the dark side, and he presented me with a star drop for my efforts. I felt like I was filled with unlimited power. I finished up a ghost-slaying quest from the wizard. I would turn that in the following day. I went to bed with the realization I had forgotten to check my woodpile. I'd have to do that tomorrow. On the morning of day 22, I remembered to check my woodpile, where I found a club card. I would need to travel to the desert oasis on a good luck day to use this. I found a slime hunter request when I went into town, and I accepted it. I also picked up a special order from the wizard, a curious substance. I needed to hunt ghosts, and one of them would drop an ectoplasm. I traveled to the wizard's tower and turned in the ghost hunting request from the day before. I was off to the mines to kill some slimes. Once finished, I turned in the request to Lewis. I had a prize token from the wizard, and I redeemed a houseplant. I was on a ghost hunt, but all I found were skeletons. I killed so many that I earned a skeleton mask, but not one ghost made their presence known. The morning of day 23 was spent in my greenhouse harvesting my tomatoes and hot peppers. When I went into town, I picked up an iron ore request from Clint, which is perfect as I'm going to be grinding the iron floors while ghost hunting. I found a handful of ghosts, but no ectoplasm. I did, however, find 5 jade that I will be giving to the desert trader in exchange for staircases. I awoke on day 24 in a much larger version of my farmhouse. I now had a kitchen to cook pizza. If only I knew how. I moved some of my furniture around and decided to make 2 more crystallariums to farm jade from my staircases. I didn't have much to do on the farm, so I visited Robin and moved my silos so there would be room for the anchovy fish pond she would build for me. I went into town and I accepted a copper request from Clint. It was George's birthday and I gifted him a hot pepper. I turned in Clint's request from yesterday and had him upgrade my watering can to gold. I had him break open the artifact troves, mystery boxes, and a few geodes. Among the goodies were another ancient seed, a golden pumpkin, and some artifacts I hadn't donated to the museum. I went to the mines and found copper for Clint. I'll turn that in tomorrow. I did not find the ectoplasm, and I'm not going to keep looking. That would be the last day of fall that I spent in the mines. On day 25, I harvested my wheat. I would not be planting more as it would not be ready to harvest before the end of the season. I placed the last bit into the mill to turn it into flour. I saw Clint about the ores I had found for him and was awarded a prize token. I received the Woodcutter's Weekly book and gained some forage experience. I went to the docks to do some fishing where Willie was utilizing the bug bait I had brought him. He taught me how to craft a quality bobber. I fished the rest of the afternoon, and after the sun went down, I returned to my farm to clear some trees. I had a letter from Mayor Lewis on the morning of day 26 reminding me of the upcoming Spirits Eve festival. After finishing some farm chores, I was off to Jojamart to purchase the final community upgrade. That will remove the glittering boulder near the mine entrance and open up panning. I picked up my gold watering can and gave Clint my hoe to upgrade. I stopped by the sewers and purchased an iridium sprinkler and star drop from Krobus. I fished in the mountain lake and caught a largemouth bass, which I took to dinner at Jody's. I cleaned up my farm a bit before turning in early. That night, the glittering boulder disappeared, and I reached foraging level 9. I was feeling lucky on day 27 and headed to the Skull Cavern. Well, I had to return back to the mines first to buy some bombs from the dwarf. Whoops, and then I headed in. I mentioned buying 100 salads on day 21. This was the time to use them. For very little money, they provided a fair amount of healing. In early afternoon, I slayed a ghost, and guess what it dropped? Ectoplasm. I had given up on the wizard's special order quest, but now I'd be able to turn it in. I mined very little iridium before returning to my farm. It was time for the Spirits' Eve festival in town, where I bought a rare crow scarecrow and braved the hedge maze where I was awarded a golden pumpkin. It was day 28. Fall was coming to a close with winter right at my doorstep. I received a letter from Willie saying he unlocked the back room of his shop, but I didn't have time to stop by today. I headed for the Cindersap Forest and delivered the ectoplasm to the wizard. I was back to Skull Caverns. I traded in my quartz for bombs, rubies for spicy eels, and jades for staircases before descending into the darkness. I made it to level 77 and left with over 70 pieces of iridium to smelt. I reached level 9 combat. I awoke to a bitter chill in the air on day 1. The once vibrant valley had fallen into the deep slumber of winter. With no pizza-related crops to grow, I wandered into town. I stopped at the bus stop where a shadow guy was hanging out. He fled when he saw me, and I took off after him. I was stopped when Morris of Joja was holding a celebration in my honor for unlocking all of the community improvements. He gave me a soda machine, and I know just the place to put it. I found the shadow guy hiding behind a bush very close to what used to be the community center. He gave me a magnifying glass which can be used to read secret notes. I stopped in the sewer to give a star drop tea to Krobus for his birthday. It was special order day, but neither of them appealed to me, so I went to Clint's and had my hoe upgraded to gold. I was off to the mines when Willie stopped me to give me a copper pan. I'm only interested in a personal pan pizza, so this will not be utilized. To get to Ginger Island, I would need 5 battery packs, and while I had used some from my crystallariums, there weren't any thunderstorms in fall. So I would have to wait until next spring to fix Willie's boat. I wasn't happy about this, but if I farm enough jade to get more staircases, I can get to the lower mine levels in the Skull Caverns. There is a 5% chance that iridium bats will drop a battery pack. 2 packs if I have the burglar ring. I got to work killing dust sprites, and by the end of the evening, I had less than 100 to go. Once I reach 500, I'll get that burglar ring. I felt lucky as I got ready to head into the mines on day 2. The day before, I had found a pretty blue shirt in the caverns and decided to wear it with my straw farming hat, since I would be farming for dust sprites all day. While I was there, I picked up as much iron as possible. I could use this to craft some bombs of my own. I knew I was close to my goal, but it was getting late, so I checked my total at the Adventurers Guild. 489 out of 500. Hey, that's not bad at all. I'll definitely have this finished up tomorrow. I left with 240 pieces of iron, plus some jade, rubies, and quartz I would trade for desert goodies. Day 3 started a little differently. I made 10 more preserve jars for my tomatoes. I left the farm and found the wizard waiting for me by the bathhouse. Something about drama with his ex-wife, who was a witch, and he wanted his magic ink back. This is definitely not a priority to me, so I left. It was Linus's birthday, and I gave him one of my hot peppers. I picked up my gold hoe from Clint and ran around digging up everything I could find before heading into the mines. Just before 6 o'clock, I met the goal. I went to the Adventurers Guild to claim my prize, the burglar ring. Monsters have a greater chance of dropping loot. I spent the rest of the evening cutting down some trees and clearing the quarry. On my way home, I found a book, Combat Quarterly, and by reading it, I gained some combat experience. On day 4, I woke up feeling lucky again, and I was going to use that to my advantage. I dropped off an ancient doll to the museum and had Clint open some mystery boxes to reveal more food, warp totems, and seeds. I headed to the desert oasis specifically. I presented my club card to the bouncer and told that blockhead to step aside. I entered the club and met the famous Mr. Key, who told me I was special. He told me he was the one who put the treasure chests in the mine shaft. Seriously, this guy has way too much free time. The file on me is kinda cool and kinda stalkerish. I checked out the alien rarecrow scarecrow I wanted and ate a spicy eel to hopefully increase my luck. I blew 10 grand on key coins to get started, and then I hit the slots. I played pretty well, and before I knew it, I had acquired enough from my new alien friend. I stopped in Skull Cavern for a minute and decided I didn't want to be there. I returned home and was off to the secret woods for slime bashing and hardwood gathering. While in the Cindersap forest, I dug up some artifacts. I went to the sewer and picked up the Dark Talisman as part of the wizard quest, but I was really there to catch the slimejack fish, because I think it's pretty. I spent most of day 6 around town. On Fridays, Krobus sells iridium sprinklers, so I stopped by the sewers to purchase one. I dropped off goodies to the museum, and after buying some trout soup and trap bobbers from Willie, I was off to the Cindersap forest to reel up the glacier fish, which I caught on the first try. I reported my achievement to Willie and fished in the ocean the rest of the afternoon into early evening when I fished up a squid. At the saloon, I gave Demetrius a herring, completing a fetch quest, and delivered a squid for Willie. I was up to fish in the mines when Linus stopped me. He was glad we were friends, and after squishing around in his tent, gave me some wild bait. When using the wild bait, there's a chance to snag 2 fish, and it can be found in treasure chests. On level 20 of the mines, I fished up the ghostfish and stonefish. Back at the farm, I crafted a chest for fish that I will need for fetch quests, and some that I just like to look at. On day 6, I figured since I had that dark talisman for the wizard's quest, I may as well finish it. There was a henchman outside of the witch's hut, and he refused to move aside so I could enter. It turns out that goblin henchmen are huge fans of void mayonnaise. I don't have chickens, eggs, or mayonnaise makers. I could have bought a void egg from Krobus and turned it into mayo, but decided it would be more fun to fish for it. I spent most of the day fishing up algae and void salmon until my luck turned around and there was a void mayo. I gave it to the goblin, he was delighted, and ran off, leaving the house open. I grabbed the magic ink and stepped on a warp that took me to the wizard's basement. I found a statue that let me change my appearance for a small fee, so I did. I had my short hair for most of the year, and as there are no hair cutters in Pelican Town, I had let it grow out. It had been under my hat this whole time. I returned the ink to the creepy wizard, who gave me access to a magical book thingy. With it, I can build magical buildings on my farm and obelisks. I won't use it, but I guess that's cool. I got everything ready for my weekly trip to the desert I'd be taking in the morning. I crafted a bunch of bombs with the iron I had mined while farming for dust sprites and was off to bed. The morning of day 7, I smelled something awful outside. I thought it was my anchovy fish pond, but it was just my good friend Pierre letting me know he'd be getting some new seeds next year. Spring seeds would now include garlic, something I'm permitted to cultivate. It was time for the Skull Caverns. I traded my rubies, jade, and quartz and made the descent. Many consider the number 7 lucky, and it certainly felt that way. It wasn't until that evening that the impossible finally happened. A prismatic shard appeared when I blasted open an iridium ore node. The scream I screamed could be heard all the way back in Pelican Town. 2 hours later, I found a mystic geode, the same kind of geode I expected to find on my quarry. There's only a small chance that once it's opened, it will produce a prismatic shard, and today it did. I left the cavern and ran to the 3 pillars in the desert. I held one of the shards up to the sky, and behold, the galaxy sword was bestowed upon me from the heavens. I raced back home with 88 pieces of iridium and started smelting. I had picked up the high heat shirt in the mines and decided to wear it to bed that night. Here's a quick look comparing my previous weapon to my current weapon. The Festival of Ice had arrived on day 8. After finishing my chores, I headed into the Cindersap Forest for the festivities. I bought an icy banner to commemorate the occasion, and it was time to start the ice fishing tournament. I won and was awarded a hat and some bobbers I decided to sell. When I returned to my farm, I did some decorating before putting my new sailor hat on Diane and a pirate hat on Blinky. An explosion was heard during the night. On day 9, I woke up in a bad mood. Last night, it had taken a while for me to fall asleep, and just as I was drifting off to slumberland, there was a loud explosion. A cursory glance around the farm, and everything looked okay. I made some mixed winter seeds from forage I had found around the valley, then went off to take care of my animals. That's when I saw a meteor in the middle of my animals' area, so I broke it apart with my pickaxe. If it had been elsewhere on the farm, I would have probably kept it where it was, but it was going to be in the way here. Breaking it yielded 2 omnigeodes, some rocks, and some iridium ore. My anchovy pond was thriving, and the fishies had requested 2 pieces of coral. I went to the beach to pick them up when a special order caught my eye. It was Robin's Resource Rush. The carpenter challenged me to collect 1,000 pieces of wood in a week. Easy peasy. My farm is a mess, so that would take no time at all. I got to work taking down the trees at the bus stop and then moved on to my farm. I was done by the evening and had earned 2,500 gold plus all the wood I had gathered. I watered my crops and headed back to the beach. Sandy from Calico Desert requested a squid, so once I caught one, I headed home. I could hand that in tomorrow. Day 10 was a day for fetch quests and fishing. It all started when I received a letter from Mayor Lewis thanking me for helping my neighbors, and a 2,500 gold gift was included. For completing Robin's Resource Rush, the carpenter sent me blueprints for a stone chest. I used my last desert warp totem to visit the desert trader and get some more. I caught some sandfish while I waited for the oasis to open, and then I delivered the squid to Sandy. Back in town, I delivered an earth crystal to George. I ran into Elliot, who called me the town's #1 ice fisher. I'd be lying if I said I didn't blush a little. I turned in some prize tokens for a cow decal and some omnigeodes. I gave Sebastian a frozen tear for his birthday. He seemed really happy. I fished the rest of the evening. On level 60 of the mines, I couldn't find the ice pip anywhere. I kept getting algae and ghost fish. I moved on to floor 100 and fished up the lava eel almost instantly. I wouldn't say that I'm trying to catch all the fish, but as it's winter and I'm a little tired of mining, it's a nice change of pace. After the squid fishing tournament later this week, that sentiment will most likely change. Day 11 was supposed to be lucky, so I was off to the desert. I wasn't planning on doing a deep dive into the Skull Cavern. In fact, it was very slow going for most of the day. I found a secret note I had been waiting for, letting me know that someone was waiting for me on the 100th floor of the desert mines. I wasn't going to do a deep dive until I had well over 100 staircases for that mission. In the past, I've gotten by only using a few, but my focus isn't the mines. It's pizza, so I don't have any problem just spamming stairs on the way down. My galaxy sword was making quick work of the beasties, but it took some time getting used to the speed difference in my new weapon. I had a stroke of luck that evening when I found a prismatic shard, and in the next room, a treasure chest had another prismatic shard. I felt so defeated when I couldn't find one on my quarry, and now I had encountered 4 within the past 7 days. I left the mines, pockets full of gems and other goodies. What a great day! I think the most boring day in the valley so far was day 12. I bought an iridium sprinkler from Krobus and headed to the fishing shindig at the beach. I bought more bait from Willie before I fished up 12 squid and received some okay prizes. The bookseller was in town, so I bought 2 books to give me some experience in foraging and combat. I questioned if this was the best way to spend my money, decided it was, and made that money back with all of the fish I sold. I wanted to bring home the bacon on day 13, so I stopped by Marnie's and bought 4 pigs. Get it? Bacon! Anyway, bacon, pepperoni, ham, and sausage joined my cow and goat friends in the barn. Buying them now ensures they will definitely be adults by the time spring rolls around. Truffles and truffle oil will play an integral role in my path to pizza millionaire status. I cleaned up the farm a bit and delivered a void essence to the wizard. While I was there, I looked at his Enchanted Buildings book and moved some of my own farm buildings around. I still have so much to do to make my farm look nice, but there's only so much time in the day. I sold some junk I had lying around in my main chest and took some old weapons and accessories up to Marlin at the Adventurers Guild, where I sold them. I picked up a vampire ring I had earned by slaying bats, and I decided to poke around in the lower levels of the mine for a little bit to test out my galaxy sword before heading home for the night. I awoke on day 14 to a hot pepper harvest in the greenhouse. They've been going into the dehydrators every day, and it's been a steady source of income during the snowy season. I usually venture into the desert cavern on Sundays, but it was a bad luck day, so I just exchanged my gems and minerals for food, staircases, and bombs. I returned to town and wished Harvey, the town doctor, a happy birthday with one of his favorites, a hot cup of coffee. I dropped off some goodies at the museum and wandered around the lower levels of the mines before heading home. I had definite plans for day 15. On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the night market would be taking place at the beach. I didn't want to stray too far from town as I wanted to be able to enjoy the special event without too much rushing. I worked around my farm, starting with enlarging the area I had fenced off for my animals to graze. I expanded my crop growing area and crafted some more basic sprinklers. I don't have any battery packs, so I can't make iridium sprinklers, and the ones I bought from Krobus I'm saving for Ginger Island. I didn't have time to finish everything I wanted, but it was getting late. I stopped by the special orders board on my way to the beach and picked up Gunther's Fragments of the Past request. I'll need to collect 100 pieces of bone. That just means skeleton slaying. No biggie. I bought cauliflower seeds, 384 to be exact. The first day of spring is always chaotic, and if I could save myself some time that day by already having some seeds, it would make me feel better about the changing of the seasons. I grabbed some free coffee and took the deep fishing submarine tour. I fished up the fish unique to the night market, the spookfish, the midnight squid, and the blobfish. I also caught an iridium band accessory in a fishing chest and equipped it immediately. I could have crafted one of these, but forgot about it. It will increase my attack by 10% while acting as a magnet and glow ring. I left the sub and bought some decorations for my farm. It's not as if I'm anywhere near my $1 million right now, and I wanted to buy something nice for myself. I watched The Mermaid Show. And when it was over, I played the melody on the shells to receive a pearl. I warped back home, put away some fish from my collection, and sold the rest. It was another day of spring preparations on day 16. I set up my decorations and harvested the tomatoes in my greenhouse. I gathered up the bounty of forage from my mixed winter seeds and crafted more. I harvested my first round of powder melons. I crafted several seed makers and processed all of the powder melons back into seeds. Some turned into mixed seeds and one turned into an ancient seed. I'm sure it all seems very wasteful when there's money to be made here, but I'm going to be very happy when the first day of spring rolls around and I'll just have a bunch of wilted plants to clear away rather than branches, rocks, and weeds. I stopped by the night market for a melon seed. I will need this for Ginger Island. I bought a pretty mermaid painting and did a little fishing at a spawning spot. After the fish moved on, I too retreated to the mines to get started on Gunther's bone collecting quest. I didn't make a lot of progress, but I picked up some iron and a piece of jade that will be traded in for a staircase. I wasn't planning on attending the night market on day 17, so I got to work harvesting my hot peppers, made more mixed winter seeds, and replanted them. I added more pathing on my way to the wizard's tower. It was his birthday, and I gave him a dark essence. I returned to the mines to work on Gunther's quest. I acquired several bone swords and took a short break to sell 4 of them. I found another before returning home for the night. A letter was waiting for me on day 18. It was from Mayor Lewis, informing me of the upcoming Feast of the Winter Star. I had to provide a present for a villager, and I was assigned Shane. I just want to point out how disappointed I was that it wasn't my good friend Pierre. I crafted a whole bunch of oil makers in anticipation of the truffles my pigs would be digging up. This used up nearly all of my hardwood, so I planted some mahogany seeds and went to the secret woods to chop some stumps. I returned to my farm and crafted a whole bunch of lightning rods to gather the battery packs I would need the following year. After depleting my resources, I was off to the mines to work on Gunther's bone gathering quest. I completed it earlier than expected and had acquired even more bone swords in the process. The museum was closed, so I dropped off the bone fragments the next day. While I was at the Adventurers Guild selling the swords, I treated myself to a pair of space boots. I forgot that I had the cruddy tundra boots equipped. No wonder I had been taking so much damage. Feeling safer than ever, I returned home. I split my time between town and my farm on day 19. I gathered some hardwood from the secret woods and bought an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. While in town, I beachcombed, looking for an urchin my fish pond anchovy requested, but I only found coral. I dropped off the bones and Gunther awarded me 3,500 gold. I donated some goodies for the museum while I was there. I stopped by Clint's and gave the blacksmith an iron bar he had requested. There was a prize ticket waiting for me by the special orders board. I redeemed it for 4 bee houses. I set these up next to my house and will collect the honey, as it was free, but I'm not going out of my way to craft flower-specific honey, certainly not fairy rose honey. Just boring old honey isn't going to make me millions, so I'll allow it. I spent the rest of the evening cleaning up my farm. A letter was waiting for me on day 20. Gunther sent me a thank you note with instructions on how to construct a bone mill. Once my chores were finished, I was up to the mountains, where I ordered a shed from Robin. I purchased some wood that I'll be using to craft more preserve jars once the shed is complete. I stopped in town to wish Granny Evelyn a happy birthday and gifted her a diamond. I was off to the secret woods to chop stumps and did a spot of fishing when a spawning spot appeared. Once I returned to the farm, I did a little more cleaning up before heading into the mines, where I slime hunted. I found a Forager's Delight hat, which doesn't look much different than my farming hat. All that slime squashing paid off. I reached level 10 combat and chose the brute profession, ensuring I deal 15% more damage. Day 21 was one for the books. It was Sunday, and I was going to the Desert Trader. I was going to wait until I had more jade to trade for staircases, but I was feeling lucky, so I took my chances. I was doing all right throughout the morning and afternoon, but it wasn't until the evening that my luck really started to ramp up. On level 95, I opened a chest to find a crystallarium. Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. Moments later, on floor 96, I found another prismatic shard. Soon I had reached level 100, and who was waiting for me? Pierre? Grandpa's ghost? No, it was Mr. Key, who still gives off big stalker vibes. He admonished me for using staircases, but decided it must have taken dedication to collect so much stone. To be fair, I was crafting more staircases as I went throughout the mine, so he wasn't wrong. The mysterious man offered some iridium snake milk to me, and as disgusting as it tasted, it permanently increased my health by 25. I continued into the mines and picked up a battery pack and iridium bat dropped. I would have liked to have picked up more, but one was a good start. I had added some tappers to some pine trees back on my farm, and with pine tar I can create rain totems, which will trigger storms, which will give me more battery packs. I left the mines very late, having reached level 109 with 140 pieces of iridium. There was a letter from Robin waiting for me on day 22. She had sent me 50 pieces of wood, and I thought that was very neighborly of her. After farm chores and stump busting in the secret woods, I picked up an aquatic overpopulation quest from Demetrius, who wanted me to fish up squid. If I have nothing else to do, I'll fish, but I really don't want to look at another squid. I took my watering can to Clint's so the blacksmith could upgrade it to iridium quality. I went up to Jojamart, well, the truck outside of it specifically, and gave the driver a rabbit's foot a serpent had dropped in the mines. In exchange, he gave me a special charm. Now my luck is permanently increased. That afternoon, I moved my preserve jars, and I also moved around some of my farm buildings. I crafted preserve jars until I ran out of coal. I'll have to replenish my supply either in the mines or buying it from Clint. Hold on, there's actually a little area near the quarry that has coal nodes. I should go in there. At some point during the day, I dug up a camo shirt and white overalls. I didn't really feel like changing, so I stuck them in my dresser. On day 23, a lot of my forage was ready to harvest, so I got to work gathering it up and crafting it back into seeds. At this rate, I won't have to worry about hoeing up any of this area for my spring crops. When I checked on my farm friends, I was delighted to see that my little piggies were all grown up and will be ready to truffle hunt in the spring. I warped to the desert to grab some things out of my chest that I would want to take with me when I get to Ginger Island. I dropped by Leah's and gave her one of her loved gifts, a salad. That reminded me that I wanted to buy some more salads, so I stopped by the saloon. I went to the quarry and broke up in some coal nodes, then I ventured into the quarry mines. I took my time, breaking up the large rocks to replenish my dwindling supply and take out the haunted skulls. There were some interesting monster drops, including male and female cursed mannequins, a dark sword, a skeletal hand artifact, the slammer, and a pair of baggy pants. I left with a golden scythe and 67 pieces of coal. I tried on the baggy pants, and they just weren't for me. There was a visitor at my farmhouse on day 24. It was Leah. She brought me a wooden sculpture. She had named it How I Feel About Ghost, and I was so touched I displayed it on my porch. The forage from my mixed winter seeds was ready to harvest, and once it was all gathered up, I turned it back into seeds and replanted it. I had some extra powder melons, so I sold them. I picked up my iridium watering can from Clint's and dropped off some goodies at the museum. I only had one skill left to max out, foraging, so I was back to the secret woods for stump busting. While I was there, I did a little fishing when a spawning spot appeared. Robin had sent me a request for some hardwood, so I delivered it that afternoon. That evening, I went to the beach to work on Demetrius' special order request. I fished up 7 of the 10 squid and would try to finish it by the end of the week. My stump busting paid off. I reached level 10 foraging and chose the lumberjack profession. All trees have a chance to drop hardwood. I awoke with a strange feeling the morning of day 25, but I wouldn't have time to explore that feeling until after the festival. I got to work with farm chores. The pine tar for my rain totems was ready. I just needed the truffle oil that I'd be able to craft in the spring. My preserve jars were also ready, so I quickly refilled them before heading into town for the celebration. I chatted with the villagers and wished them pizza on earth, goodwill toward men. I bought a festive winter banner as a reminder of my first feast of the winter star. The time had come to give Shane his present. I chose one of my prettiest gold star hot peppers. He loved it. My secret gift giver was revealed to be Linus. Thankfully, he kept the wild bait at home and gave me a purple mushroom. Pizzas and mushrooms go well together, so it was a good pick. After the festival, I traveled south of the cindersap forest and found a secret room. There was a note from Grandpa. I had to keep working on my skills, and someday I'd be able to unlock his best tools and crafting recipes. That sounded exciting. I had a lot to look forward to in the upcoming year. On day 26, I finished my farm chores and headed to the secret woods for stump busting. I went into town and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus before fishing up another legendary fish, the mutant carp. I stopped in the saloon and chatted with everyone. I brought Shane another Gold Star hot pepper because it's nice to see him smile. I went to the beach to finish Demetrius' special order request and took a little break to return to the saloon with a loved gift for Clint's birthday, a topaz. I dropped off an albacore Gus had requested, then I was back to the beach. I fished up the very last squid and was awarded 1,200 gold. I awoke on day 27 with a fright. The cursed mannequins had moved around during the night. I was hesitant to set them up in my house, and this is the reason why. Perhaps they were moving around looking for clothes. I had more forageables from mixed winter seeds ready, so I harvested them and crafted more seeds. In town, I had Clint open some mystery boxes for me. A mountain warp totem, a ring, and some parsnip seeds were found inside, and I sold all but the totem. I went into the lower levels of the mines to work on some monster eradication goals. Unfortunately, I found a haunted skull floor. As soon as you open up the quarry cave, these floors can start spawning in the regular mines. I'm not a fan. The rest of my mining trip was uneventful until a monster dropped 2 squire helmets. I wore one for the rest of the night. It was the last day of the year, day 28. I dressed the cursed mannequins so I'd be more aware of their nocturnal movements. I visited the desert trader for some staircases and exchanged 10 iridium bars for the desert warp totem recipe. By noon, I was back in town, where I discovered an adorable Jumino plush in the bush behind the playground. I claimed a prize token and exchanged it for 5 diamonds I would sell. I spent the evening in the mines, where I found a pretty red shirt. I changed into it before traveling to the Stardrop Saloon, where I rang in the new year with a cold one. I'm going to leave it here so we can enjoy the ride home, and I'll be back for year 2. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you'll be notified when a new video comes out. Please leave your comments and suggestions down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.